Coming up next on At Your Service, a conversation with the Office of School Counseling and their positive impact on the students of Anne Arundel County. Today on At Your Service, we're going to have a conversation with the coordinators of school counseling in the Office of School Counseling for Anne Arundel County Schools. And today I have the coordinators of school counseling, and usually Susan is a co-host on At Your Service, but today she's going to be a guest. So can you all tell a little bit about yourselves and what you do for Anne Arundel County Schools? We'll start with Susan.
Yeah, so thanks, Ryan. I'm the coordinator of school counseling for grades 9 through 12. I've been an educator for about 28 years. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and a former teacher.
Hello, Ryan. I'm Shirley Jackson-Avery, and I am the coordinator of school counseling from pre-K through 8th grade. In the county, I have about 28 years, and I've been a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, and I'm very pleased to be the coordinator of school counseling for students. Happy to be here today.
Good, awesome. So before we get started to talk about what school counselors do and how they support children in our schools, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of a background do school counselors usually have? What is their training? Just a little bit about, so parents know when their child's seeing a school counselor what their background and experience might be.
Our counselors are certified by the state of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
They all have a master's degree in guidance and counseling, in school counseling, counseling education. In addition to that, we have a mental health background.
Mm-hmm.
We are skilled at counseling students in academics, college and career readiness, and also personal and social domains.
Okay, awesome. And Susan, do some of them start off in different educational positions, or do most of them come right out of their master's program?
So it depends. Mm-hmm. So MSD has changed the regulations for school counselors. They used to have a teaching certificate prior to earning a school counseling certificate, but now they can come directly from undergrad to grad right into the schoolhouse. Mm-hmm. And so it has changed over time.
Awesome, great. So this year, the Office of School Counseling and the Office of Student Services, which school counseling is under, has received a number of new positions. Can you talk about the new counseling positions, how many positions, why it's so important that we got those positions this school year?
Well, I can talk, Shirley and I both work very closely together, so we were afforded this opportunity for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. We look to see where needs were, and we talk about all the different levels. So we do have new positions at the elementary, middle, and the high school level where students needed, or the schoolhouses needed a little bit more support to support the students and the families and what was happening in our culture today.
We were very fortunate that our superintendent, the Board of Education, County Council, and the County Executive recognized the need for school counselors in the schools. I will tell you that it has made a world of difference. 18 new positions, and we were able to put them at all levels. So in schools, elementary schools that had over 800 students, with one counselor, we're now able to place 2 counselors there. And that is going to have a huge impact on how we service our students.
And you talk about increasing, especially in those schools that where enrollment is increased. What does the American School Counseling Association recommend in terms of the ratio of school counselors to the number of students in a school? Do you want to answer that, Susan?
Right. So the American School Counseling Association says 1 counselor to 250 students. And so when we think about that and putting a counselor, an additional counselor at a schoolhouse, we look at the needs and what the program looks like. And I know that Shirley and I will talk a little bit about the specifics at each level, but really those direct services to students, I'm going to just speak about high school because that's my area, and just looking at all the amount of college and career preparations for students, working on with families applications and essays to complete. And so having caseloads that are more manageable so the counselors are able to directly impact and really help the students complete, those post-secondary goals and plans is vital. And elementary and middle school, I'll let Shirley discuss.
Elementary is critical time. We have our school counselors working on building those foundational skills for students. So when we think of college and career readiness, we think of awareness. They need to be aware of the different careers that are out there and the possibilities that are available to them. When we think of social emotional learning and building that in for students, making sure that they understand what is empathy, what is respect, making sure that they are ready. And as they approach middle school, building upon those skills. So now we're going to have some peer conflicts, and how do we deal with those conflicts appropriately? And how do we take a deeper dive into the college and career preparation that they're going to need for high school?
And really that alignment. Shirley and I have talked a lot about elementary, middle, and high school, and they're not separate. They really need to align. So everything that they're doing in elementary, that preventative model, you're building those skills, so by the time they are in high school, they're able to advocate for themselves appropriately. They're able to ask for help, and they're aware. They have a deeper understanding of self and the world around them. So that is really important. So, and then I take it to a deeper dive with the career aspect and the majors, or whether it's a post-secondary plan for apprenticeship. So it's constantly building upon the next level.
Excellent. And so you touched on a couple questions I had, but first, I know that the state of Maryland came out with a new regulation or law that talks about school counselors specifically and their role in the school building. Can you talk about that COMAR regulation or Code of Maryland regulation, and then also how does that play out in the schools in terms of what a parent's child would see counselors doing during the school day?
So the new Maryland regulation is that school counselors will spend 80% of their time in direct service with students and 20% in indirect services. When we think about direct services to students, that's going to be I'm working either one-on-one or I'm delivering a classroom lesson, or I'm working with them doing a presentation, but I'm directly in contact with your student and your child and servicing that child. Indirect service would mean that I'm meeting and collaborating with other team members and building in supports for your student, or I'm working with parents and sitting down with them, making sure that I understand the student's needs. So this is a really big regulation for us that it's mandated. We spend 80% of our time during the day with your child in direct service.
And I think that's just because, you know, looking nationally at what is happening at the lay of the land around, you know, environments with mental health, and I know that we're going to talk about that, but just that preparation that they really want to focus in, because school counselors have a skill set that most people don't have in that schoolhouse, because they can deal with both academic, personal, social, plus the mental health piece, and really using that collaboration. So they see they're vital to really helping students access their education and support for being successful for wherever they're transitioning. And so that they notice that, and they really don't want them to spend their time with things that are going to sidetrack students or really not close that gap for them.
Great. And so if I'm a parent who doesn't know a whole lot about the school counselor and their role in the building, what can I expect to see them doing? Are they going to be in the classroom? Are they going to be seeing my child individually? Does every kid in the school, would every kid in the school know the school counselor? Can you answer that? And then we'll talk specifically about what it might look like differently, elementary, middle, and high.
So I'm just going to talk a little about program planning. So in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, school counselors follow the national model. It's the American School Counseling Association. And within that national model, it's comprehensive in nature. It's, you know, pre-K to 12. It's universal, so that our program focuses on a delivery of 100% to all students. And I'll just give you an example. So at the high school level, we have Naviance, and every grade level has a certain program. So counselors have certain tasks that they have to do with their students just for that knowledge and preparation. So it's not just 20% gets it here at one school, and another school they're doing something differently. So the responsibility for the counselors is that all students get the same information. You know, and then we can talk about more targeted interventions for students. But there has to be a baseline so that all students get the same information, because it's going to equip them to be productive students.
Like Susan said, we are universal, we're comprehensive, but we're also preventative.
Yes.
And so in our topics that we teach for curriculum, we make sure that we're covering topics that maybe they're not experiencing just yet, but in the future they may come across a conflict that they need to resolve. They may have a situation which requires empathy.
Yes.
They may run into some conflicts, and so we're teaching them how effectively to deal with those situations. At every level, it looks differently. A parent can expect at the elementary level to see their school counselor delivering the core curriculum that they have. Within that core curriculum, they have topics that they have to cover every single quarter for students. There are some that are mandated by Maryland state law. Our substance abuse lessons or our errand law lessons, which deal with child abuse, those are mandated state lessons. At the middle school level, you're going to see your school counselor not only delivering lessons, but working very closely with the teacher on strategies to help that student access education and instruction. And then Susan spoke about what they do at the high school level with Naviance and college and career planning. A lot of individual advisement happens at the high school level.
Definitely. And it looks a little bit different because at the high school and the middle school level, we really partner with the health curriculum and the teachers with the health curriculum. And so some of the mental health topics that we're going to talk about probably later, we partner so that the delivery is not always by the school counselor per se.
Excellent. And so what I'm hearing is there's there's preventative, so all students should have access to will have access to their school counselor no matter what level. But there are some targeted times where kids might see a counselor individually, might meet in a group situation also. If a parent wanted to access their school counselor, how would they do that?
Simply by calling the school. They can set up an appointment, or if they're dropping in and just asking to see their school counselor, on every single website for the schools, they have the counselor listed individually, and they can email them. But we are more than willing to meet with parents and to talk about their child and set up supports for their student at school.
Excellent. And how do they balance, obviously our children are in school to get that instruction and to learn. How do they balance that time with the counselor and also being in the classroom? How do counselors manage that? How do they work with teachers when it comes to, providing the supports that kids might need, but also making sure that they're available for that learning?
And so one of the things we've asked the school counselors to do is set up a yearly calendar. That's part of the program model. It's that how do you manage your time? And so part of it is that delivery of service. So the big components of counseling are curriculum, that we have a comprehensive program. Second is those targeted supports. So students that need more, we can do individual or we can do some sort of cohorted group. And so really setting up their calendar so that they're knowing who they're partnering with in those classrooms. And so it looks different at every level. And so I think part of that is the component, having that management down.
So I'm gathering there's a lot of collaboration that counselors have to do. They have to know what's going on throughout the building so they can support every child. And so that will bring us to our break. So after the break, we're going to talk more about how school counselors collaborate with other staff members in the building, also how they collaborate with the outside community agencies to support your child at home. So coming up next on At Your Service.
Today I come to you with exciting news about school meals. Breakfast is offered in all schools every day. At lunch, students are offered at least 4 different entrees, many different types of whole grains, and unlimited choices of fresh fruits and vegetables. Students are encouraged to select up to 2 cups of fresh produce or to fill half of their tray at lunch from our unique salad bars. You may also monitor your child's school meals account online at My Payments Plus. This is a convenient tool. It's offered to all parents to make managing your school meals account a simple process. To learn more about My Payments Plus, simply visit www.mypaymentsplus.com or call 877-237-0946. Registration is free and quick, so get started today. Each year, families have the ability to apply for free or reduced price meals. The application to apply is online. Parents, you may log on to applyformeals.aacps.org. This process is fast, it's easy, convenient, and it's accessible from any computer. Remember, if you received meal benefits last year, you must complete a new application each school year. Thank you for this opportunity to provide this valuable information pertaining to school meals. School meals fuel your child's brain and body for academic success. If you have any questions regarding the healthy school meals offered in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, please contact me directly at 410-222-5900. Thanks again, and have a great school year.
We are back at Your Service to continue our conversation with the Office of School Counseling. And before the break, we talked a lot about the role of the school counselor. And to start, I would like to talk more about supporting the mental health needs of children in our school system. You know, as we all have seen, there's been an increase in the mental health needs of children throughout the country. So how specifically do school counselors support the mental health needs of children in Anne Arundel County Public Schools?
A major part of our role is crisis response. When a student comes down and they are in an immediate crisis mode, we make sure that we are providing support to that student. And we might pull in our other student services team members in order to do that, and to make sure that we are notifying the parent of whatever is going on with their child in that moment, and trying to get them the necessary supports that they need. But for mental health overall, like we said, our core curriculum is preventative. So we're making sure that we're teaching students about signs, symptoms, and how to access help and support. That's a big piece. So when they are in crisis, well, who do I go to? How do I seek the help? Just making sure that we're covering those pieces with students, and it looks different at every single level. When you think about elementary, we have to teach them how to use their words. When they come into school, well, how do I communicate that I'm in crisis? How do I communicate this frustration that I'm feeling? What words am I to use? And so by the time they get to middle school, and them knowing, well, I can always go to my school counselor, I can trust my school counselor, and just making sure that we keep in close contact with the parents to help support their child, especially in an immediate crisis. And that if we see something, we are making sure that we tell them what it is that we're seeing in school, and making sure that they have access to resources and supports.
Excellent, thank you. And what, or did you want to add something?
I do. So at the high school, just because, you know, this is the area that I really focus on, is, you know, kids, because of the elementary and middle curriculum, they do see the signs. But one of the things that I know the high school, our partnership with the health teachers, as I mentioned before, but really helping kids know when to reach out if they see a friend struggling. And I think that is the biggest piece I see at the high school, probably middle school level, is they know their friends are struggling, but they don't say anything, or they might tell another friend, but really trying to find a trusted adult. So it really doesn't have to be a school counselor. Most of the time they will come down to the counseling office. But if there's, you know, a student, or if somebody's watching this show today and they are like, oh my gosh, I have a teenager who's her friend or his friend is struggling with this, maybe they can help. You know, maybe they can reach out to a trusted adult in the building. Typically it's us, but really that's the thing that I see, that people knew, friends knew, and really just didn't say anything. And so it's really important for all teenagers to know, look, on the safe side, please just reach out.
Susan and I spend a lot of time encouraging our counselors to be observant, to be available in the schoolhouse, and to make sure that they're listening to the students. You can garner a lot of information if you simply sit down, build a relationship, and listen to the students and what's going on with them.
Excellent. And can you give the parents an idea of when you say crisis, what could a crisis look like? I know there are a number of different crises. Can you give kind of a range of what a crisis situation might be for a child in the school, whether it's elementary, middle, or high?
The most obvious is suicidal thoughts and gestures. You know, it could be written in an assignment. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to hurt myself. So we have a protocol and a process for that, but that's not always. You know, there's lots of other cases. We have cases of crisis that students are cutting. Just I mean, those are two of the most I think people are familiar with. But
It might just be the kid who's sitting alone at the cafeteria table and just going over and figuring out, you know, what's going on with this student. They're very quiet, they don't have any friends, or they're just sitting in isolation and they're not engaging with the school or with any of the adults at the school or peers even. And so it does range from that quiet student to the student who's
is acting out.
right, just openly acting out with behavior.
And really, the role of the school counselor would be really to calm them down and then help them develop skills.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So the whole listening piece, and then finding out what the root cause is. You know, Shirley talked about using your words. The younger the age, the more difficult it is for them to express some of the emotions they are feeling, or if they have a special need, a speech and language issue, to be able to articulate that, it can become very difficult. So what we'll see is they'll act out because they just don't know how to express themselves. So it could be a gambit of things, but just really the counselor just having a welcome, safe space is critical, and just listening, and then just trying to figure out on how I can support you, and that what supports can we put in place in the schoolhouse. And sometimes we need more intensive supports, and that's where we draw on other collaborative partners.
Excellent. So that leads me to my next question. So I know within a school building we have what's called a student services team, which usually consists of our school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers, pupil personnel workers, school nurses. Can you talk about how the school counselor collaborates with those individuals, and also what might be the differences in their role as compared to some of the other student services team members?
One of the things that we ask our student services teams to do is to make sure that they're meeting routinely, to make sure that they are actively engaged in discussions and conversations around students, and to build plans. A lot of the regulations that we have and a lot of those protocols, it says consult with another student services team member. And so a lot of consultation goes on between the counselor, the social worker, the school psych, and also the PPW and the nurse. And so we make sure that they work as a team, and then one of them will take the lead, probably case manage that student, and make sure that they're in contact with the parent. So they may not hear from the entire team, but they're going to hear from one member of that team regarding their child.
And it looks, let's take a specific example. So for example, let's say I'm the school counselor and I have a student that's not coming to school. So I would reach out to the family and make some phone calls. I'd enlist my PPW, my pupil personnel worker, and do a referral to see, okay, can you to drive to the house to see if there's something they need. It could be a daycare issue, it could be a variety of issues, but that consultation, so I'm working in line with that PPW to help support the family. And it could be a variety of issues.
It might be something with the nurse that we are not aware of. Maybe there's a condition that's occurring for this student. And so just making sure that we pull the nurse into that discussion and into that conversation, so that we make sure that we have an accurate picture of what's going on with this student and what they might need in order to come to school.
Okay, and so what I'm hearing is it's all about removing those barriers that might be impeding on their academic success. And so what role does the parent play? As the student services team collaborates, how do they involve the parent when it comes to supporting that child?
The parent is a key player in that process. The parent is the one who usually gives us the information to help support their child and lets us know, especially on the elementary level, lets us know what they believe their child might need in order to be successful. And then we try and put those supports in place at the schoolhouse. And also the parent is the one who's going to reinforce those supports at home. It's important that they stay in the loop and that they are kept up to date with what's going on with their child. But the parent is a key critical player in that.
Great. And so as we talk about how we collaborate, so we've talked about collaboration in the building. Also, how does the student services team collaborate with the administrators, the principals, the assistant principals, to make sure that they're on the same page in supporting children? Because obviously they play different roles, but they have to collaborate together. How does that happen at elementary, middle, and high school?
Well, at the high school level, they have a meeting with their leadership team. So the counselors are involved, and many of the student service team are also at the table, where they meet once a week at minimum about particular cases that they can bring students and families forward to discuss what's happening, and maybe enact another student service team member to go and really support and lay out a plan in place. But it's that consultation with your administration, so they can help support the student and the family if there's something in particular that they need, whether it's money for a field trip or access to certain things, that if a family couldn't afford to do something, you know, a graduation cap and gown, really having those discussions about how to help support that family so it's not a financial burden per se. Or, you know, working an administrator, many times we have similar caseloads, and we'll discuss what's happening. If it's a discipline problem, well, I might know there's something else going on, that there's a root cause. So really discussing the bigger picture and trying to find other supports in place so that people are aware, some of the other people are aware, so that we're able to create more of a positive, supportive environment.
Great, thank you. And so then to build on that collaboration, so obviously sometimes the school doesn't have all the resources that are necessary to support a family. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between the role of a school counselor and then someone who provides therapy or counseling services outside the school? What are the differences in terms of the role?
So school counselors are that. They're school counselors. We're here to help students be academically successful. And we're here to provide that access to that education. So if there's something that's impeding that, we look at what supports we have at the schoolhouse. And so that's really critical. So we don't do long-term therapy. We are not clinicians in that respect. That's out of our bounds of ethical standards. We cannot practice private practice within the schoolhouse. We can meet with kids. We can talk to them about, okay, what are some of the barriers or what are some of the problems? And we can provide them some short-term strategies. But when it comes to day-to-day, long-term mental health issues, we are bound to refer them to a community private counselor. And so that's something that, you know, school counselors are well aware of. And so sometimes we have to explain that to the families and communities, that our backgrounds are very different. Our schooling is very different. Our licensures are very different. And so we follow the school counseling model to provide those supports, which is comprehensive. We have curriculum where a private counselor, they're going to focus solely just on mental health. And their expertise is going to fall right under that piece, where they have to have certifications on, you know, you could get community certifications, drug and alcohol certifications, higher level certifications. They don't deal with, they don't work directly with the college career piece, the academic piece indirectly, but they're really focusing on a diagnosis and a treatment plan. And so when I see students that struggle with pervasive mental health disorders, and we're talking about the organic, not because it's situational, but those disorders that could be genetic, we do referrals, at least 3 referrals out.
And just quickly what that referral process looks like. We encourage our counselors to provide referrals to parents, but they have to provide at least 3. And so it really is the parent's choice and decision as to what referral is best for their child. So we don't just give them a name and a number and say, well, try this. No, the parent has the choice of deciding which resource they want to go with. So we make sure that they have access to a list of the providers within their community or the services that are here in Anne Arundel County. On our webpage, we have a families tab, which has the community resource guide. And there are tons of resources in there that parents can access straight from our website.
Excellent, great. Well, I just want to thank you both for having this conversation today, and you know, tell the parents at home, please reach out to your child's school counselor if you need support. They can help you with a wide variety of concerns or issues that you're having, and supports that they can provide in the school. So that's all the time we have today for At Your Service, and thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.